Yeah, let me just turn these.
Welcome to episode 77 of Think Big with Michael Zellner. All positive, no politics. My guest today is former University of Memphis head basketball coach and current coach of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, Josh Pastner. Josh, thanks for joining me today.
Michael, thanks for having me. Great to be on with you. Love when you said the word positivity. So always like to talk about positive topics, positive people. Life too short to be anything else. So I'm happy to be on with you and excited to be able to talk some life.
Awesome. Thank you for your time. So, Coach Pastner, early on in your career, you were an assistant under, two of the best coaches in college basketball, Lute Olson and John Calipari. What were those experiences like for you? And is there anything that they taught you that you still use today?
Yeah, I was fortunate to be around two guys who are in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Lute Olson's one of the greatest coaches ever to coach, regardless of sport. John Calipari's one of the greatest coaches to ever coach, regardless of sport. Both guys are incredible, and I was very fortunate to be around both of them and two Hall of Famers, which is just really cool. And as different of a personalities as both are, as in terms of just with their personalities, how they got to the end game and the end result of their profession was very similar. And they were great talent evaluators. They had great players that played for them and all those good things that go with that, but they really kept things very simple. And I always believe simple is powerful, and not to overcomplicate things. And they didn't overcomplicate things. Their teams are always really good as in terms of how hard they played defensively and defensive rebounding. And their teams were always really good offensive rebounding. And offensively, it was not a complicated system for either team. It was just, there was some structure, but they allowed guys to have less thinking and be quicker on their feet. So they're more decisive and not being indecisive. As we all know, sometimes when you're, especially in sports, if you're indecisive, you're maybe not as, sharp and able to do what you've got to do to be able to play at the level that you need to play at. If you're overthinking or overcomplicated in your mind, because it is so much of as anything in life, it's so much between the ears and the mental side of it. And trying to free that so you can just go play with freedom is so important.
April 6, 2009, you get the job at the University of Memphis to be the basketball coach, a team that, just the prior year went to the NCAA title game. You're just 31 years old, no head coaching experience at the time. And in your second season, you have a top 5 recruiting class in the nation. You coached the team for, 7 years. Your overall record was 167 and 73, right at 70%. You took the team to 4 NCAA tournaments, an NIT championship. I mean, that's an impressive NIT tournament. That's an impressive resume. What's the most important thing that you learned about yourself in those 7 years at Memphis?
Yeah, look, I love my time in Memphis, but it was a hard job following John Calipari. Nobody wanted to follow him. Right. I was kind of the last man standing, and I just happened to be at the right place at the right time because somebody had to take the job. I think everybody wanted to be the guy to follow the guy that followed Coach Calipari, but he was the winningest coach in the history of college basketball his last 4 years at Memphis. It was the most wins in the history of a 4-year time period. And he ended up, when he went to Kentucky, obviously I was excited to go to Kentucky with him. I wasn't thinking about 1 second being the head coach at Memphis. I used to say, the guy that follows this guy, I mean, you got to be a little bit crazy to do that. And so I ended up being the crazy guy in a sense. And, we had won a lot of games at Memphis. I mean, we had won a lot. And actually my first year, before we even coached a game, we had the number 1 recruiting class in the country. It ended up being top 5 in the end, but we had great recruiting classes and we won a lot. And usually the wins that we've had and some of the records that we had, usually that gets you a long-term contract extension. But when you're being compared to Coach Calipari and a 95% winning percentage, the last 4 years that he had there at Memphis, you're always like, they're saying, well, that wasn't good enough. You haven't won enough. You got to get to 95%. And so that's just part of it. And so I would say the biggest thing that I learned, because when I took the job, I was 31 years of age, which is really, it's hard to do that.
Sure.
And I was given the keys to a multi-million-dollar company. Most times when you take over and you're a CEO of a company, there's a transition, you maybe shadow people, you kind of just work your way eventually in. This is like, here's the keys, because the entire program left to go with Coach Calipari to Kentucky, deservedly so. I was excited to go to Kentucky. So I think just being in that chair and moving over 6 inches from suggestions to now decisions, and here's the keys to a multi-million-dollar company at 31, you run it, you're in charge like that. It was an incredible time period. And as you know, in Memphis, there's in a 30 to 50 mile radius, it's like being the coach of the Yankees.
Right.
I mean, the scrutiny and the intensity and the public nature of the job as the head coach of the Memphis Tigers, in that radius, there's nothing like it. And so everything that I had done was good or bad. And how I handled a halftime interview might have been scrutinized to a whole nother level. And so you're learning on the job. But I learned a lot about myself. There's things that I learned that things that I felt that I did really well, and then maybe some other things that I felt, I could have been better in this area, or I could have been better in that area. And that's just part of trying to be a lifelong learner and continuing to be better as each day as you go by as a human being. And, I think, Michael, we all go in life and you look back, just like yourself, you look back 20 years ago and you say, man, if I knew that then, what I know now, how things, we all do that. And,
Sure.
and that's part of the maturation and understanding how life operates, how life works, but also understanding that you're improving as a human being as well, too.
When you got a big raise, you said, quote, "I'm a pretty simple guy. I believe in giving back to the community, whether it's right or wrong. Coaches' salaries are about the market. I like to help as many causes as I can, whether it's my time or financially. I never let anyone pick up the tab at dinner, and I tip very well. Everything's a gift. I don't take this for granted. I'll be the same guy," unquote. From everything that I've seen, heard, and read about you, Coach, over your now, 13-year coaching career, you've always been that same guy. How have you always been able to stay grounded and appreciate the moment?
Yeah, Michael, that's a great quote. And I still live by that still to this day. And I look at it all as a gift. I know things can be taken away at any split second. Michael, I love life. Like, I think I tell people that the greatest gift is being alive. And man, and it is so short and it's so fast, and things can be taken away at any split second. And, look, we all do it. I do it. We all do. We get stressed on the small things and little things that can, bother us. And then you look back 2 years later, like, gosh, all the time and energy I spent, worrying about or stressing about that, what a waste of time. I mean, that's just part of human nature.
Sure.
It's almost like sometimes the biggest enemy of humans is sometimes your own mind, if that makes sense, so I really have a real, a real appreciation for life. Like, I really have an appreciation for literally every breath and every heartbeat. And, when you go to bed at night, it's not like you hit a machine and say, okay, when I'm sleeping here, make sure my heart keeps ticking, my blood's flowing, everything keeps working. There's no machine you hit. You fall asleep and you're, and be able to, and when you get up in the morning to have another day, another gift. And again, there's many things that I'm not good at, but I think there's one thing that I really believe that I'm probably good at, is that, people can just say those type of things a lot of times and can say they appreciate that. I really, really, like, that's a strength of mine, is I have an incredible feel and grasp about how precious life is. And I do not take it for granted, not for one split second. And I always look at that every heartbeat and every breath is a real gift, not taking things for granted. Because, look, I'm 45, Michael. I mean, I hope I can live to 120. And but if I'm only, but if I'm not able to live to 120, 130, 140, if I can only how about if I can only live to 90? That means I only got 45 years left. That's not a lot. How about if I only get to 80? That means I got 35 years left. I mean, that's when you think about that, there's an appreciation. So going back to that quote, I understand it and I believe in it. I live it. And, that doesn't mean you can't be intense. That doesn't mean you can't want to win at everything you do. That doesn't mean there's not some highs and lows, and we all have stresses and things happen. Life happens. There's a lot of things going on. But trying to stay centered to the best you can is, and understanding how really stay in a moment of gratitude.
Quote, Josh was the first big time coach to give me the opportunity to work with his team on mental performance training. He had no reason to give me the time of day. I had no proven track record at the time. His kindness made all the difference in the world. Not only did it open up the doors in terms of me eventually working with many more teams, but his belief in me gave me confidence in myself. I love him like a brother, unquote. That's our mutual friend, Greg Graber, said that of you. And, Coach, the same consistent things have been said about you over the years: character, kind, compassionate, caring, giving, genuine, enthusiastic, and thoughtful. Is one of the things that is most important to you and what you do is building, relationships with people, having a positive impact and hopefully teaching them something that they could use not only in basketball, but throughout their life?
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. And I would tell you a few things. One is I have when you're talking about Greg Graber, and he's a dear friend, and we both, like you said, mutual friends with Greg, and he's one of the best in his field at what he does with dealing with breathing, dealing with the mind, mindfulness. And I feel honored that the opportunity to get him on board with University of Memphis athletics or men's basketball at the time, way back then. And now he's, sought after and one of the very, very best at what he does. And so it's an incredible enjoyment to see somebody start from ground zero and build to what he's done. So I really, and Greg's an awesome human being. And so to be able to see that is amazing. And so, but I do believe in kindness. I think treating people properly and being good to people, and no matter, anything of your job status, your background, anything in between, just, treating people as human beings and being kind and treating people with respect. I think, kindness is a real value. And as in terms of, because it's for both ends. Not only when you're kind, you feel better, and the other person, you might gives them a lift as well too. Now, when you're being kind, you can't have a motive of trying to get something in return for being kindness. The kindness has got to be your intent and motives is you want to be good to a fellow human being. And I think that's an important, without expecting anything in return. And the only thing that you can expect in return is that you're hoping to brighten that other person's day, in that sense. And so kindness is a beautiful word. It's an important word, and I try to do the best that I can to try to be as kind as it's like, for an example, it's like a you go to a restaurant and maybe something's not going as well, or they mess up an order, or you're going through a drive-through, and I always, and it's easy to the first response is you want to, get on the person, you know what I mean? Or file a complaint about, the service wasn't good or the food. And what's interesting is, you've always got to think as in terms of, okay, maybe that individual's going through a tough time. Maybe something's going on in their life during that happened. Maybe there is a real close member of their family, got news, or they got, cancer, or they got, they maybe have passed away, or whatever. Maybe they have a child that's going through something that's really tough, and they're trying to do the best. And so maybe a little act of kindness and compassion and empathy, and with a smile, and maybe just, asking, hey, tell me, how's your day? Little things like that can change where someone else's day is maybe going through a tough time, can maybe catch them instead of, combating with a conflict in a sense. And I think that's just part of trying to see the big picture and understand that we're all humans, and there's a lot of things going on in everyone's life throughout the day.
You once said, quote, because of the intensity, scrutiny, and public nature of the job, you really don't have a time when you're off, unquote. I think most people only see the job of a head basketball coach, what they do on the court, during the season. But obviously there's so much more to it than that. How have you been able to balance life and coaching?
Yeah, no, listen, I love my job. And I don't even look at it as a job. I mean, I love what I do. I get excited going to work. I have a great passion for coaching, love being around young people and seeing them develop and mature. And then one day walk across the stage and get that degree, and then eventually becomes fathers and husbands and all the good things that go with that. And so I think that's one of the great joys of coaching. I look at coaching, what other profession can you win a game and you go in the locker room and you can dance like a 14-year-old and water gets poured on you and it's okay. And where any other line of work, you probably would get fired for if you got a sale, you went in the thing and started pouring water on everybody and dancing on the desk, but in athletics, that's okay. And so it keeps you young, it keeps you alive in a sense. But yes, balance is important. And I've got a young family at home, got a wife, got kids. I'm as competitive and want to win as anybody is there out there. But I try to do the best I can to balance. It's not easy, and I understand that. Part of it is when you're in these jobs, and for anybody's job, I mean, you're working, you're getting after it. I mean, they're long hours, long days. It's not weekends, you're busy. And so you just do the very, very best you can. And it's a balance to the best that you can, and trying to be as efficient with your time as you can. Again, easier said than done, as everybody knows. When you have kids, there's a lot of things shaking, and you're trying to do the best that you can with that. But balance is important. I'm not the best at that because I'm so locked in sometimes, especially when the season starts with the job. It's a 7-day a week, 24/7 type of mentality in that deal. But trying to do the best you can with balance is all that you can do.
At the end of your career, hopefully a very long time from now, what do you want your legacy to be as a coach?
Well, look, we all want to, as a coach, on the winning side, you all want to competing for championships and league championships and all those good things that go with that, because there is a scoreboard. When they're in sports, that's what's great about sports. It's a real reality TV show in a sense. It's the greatest reality TV show. Because you don't know what's going to happen. You got to play the game, and there is a scoreboard. There's one team that wins, one team that loses. I've always said coaching is, you're probably never as good as people say you are, and you're never as bad as people say you are. You're just somewhere in the middle on that. But look, in the end, in the big picture of it all, I really hope, when you're talking about legacy or the impact you can make, that I really hope that people know that the young people that I encountered, and or our staff, and or people, even just fans or people that have come across in the program, that we treated people the right way, and we made a positive impact in their lives, and in creating the trajectory of doing good, of doing right, and being good to people. And we had a small impact on that journey. And that's what's one of the great powers of coaching. I talk of coaching, teaching, I think, Michael, you would say this. I mean, sort of like Greg Graber, he was, who's, as we discussed earlier, a mutual friend who was who worked at a local school there in Memphis. I mean, a lot of people, one of the things they remember, take out their parents, take out their mother or father, one of the people that they always remember that has made a biggest impact on their life has usually been a coach or a teacher. And that's a real powerful opportunity to do that. And so to be able to do that's really cool. that's what's great about being in coaching is, and you talk about what you want people to think of you on your legacy way up down the line, is that you're able to make a positive impact on people. And you hope you were able to help a lot of people along the way.
The last question for you is, what are the most important lessons that you've learned in life?
Michael, great question. I mean, there's many lessons that I've learned throughout the course of life. And I would tell you three things. Number one is, as simple as this sounds, and it's literally kindergartenish, is one day at a time. And if you literally can focus on that one day at a time, you're going to be okay. I would say a second thing, I think the serenity prayer. If anybody doesn't know the serenity prayer, I won't go in the whole thing about it, but the serenity, it's 10 seconds long. And the serenity prayers really just talks about God granting me the courage and the wisdom to know the difference between things I can and can't control. And to sum it up, it's a great prayer to live by, and it's great words. And you don't have to do anything with religion to even, it's just a great prayer in a sense of really allowing you to stay with back to what my first thing was one day at a time. And I would say the third thing is, life is fast. It's precious. It can be gone in a split second of whether it's life or something. I mean, and so you do not take a second for granted, and trying to understand that it is life is beautiful, and understanding that things are very, very precious. It's really precious. And as I mentioned, not only is every day a gift, but really when you think about it, every breath and every heartbeat is a gift. I would say those three things: take it one day at a time, the serenity prayer, and realizing that literally every heartbeat and every breath is a gift that you get. Not taking that for granted would be my three areas of advice I would give on lessons I've learned in life.
Coach Pastner, I know you've met thousands and thousands of people throughout your career, and I'm sure you don't remember, but I actually met you at Greg Graber's 50th birthday party. I met you and your wife, Carrie, I believe. And
we were at that outdoor.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember. Yes, sir. Yes, I do.
And, about a year later, Greg had you call me on my birthday. You left a really nice voicemail for me. And I've always remembered that. And you didn't have to do that, but you did. And you even had a positive impact on my life because it's something I've always remembered. I know that it's an extremely busy time for you. The season's kicking off now. And I really appreciate you taking the time, to make some time to come on my show today. Thank you so much.
Well, Michael, thank you for having me. And I really appreciate it. I think what you're doing with your podcast and the message that you're talking about positivity and thinking big picture. I'm sure you've had many great guests on, and I think it's really, really cool. And Memphis is a special place, and you know that as well as anybody. There's so many great people there. I love my time in Memphis, and there's a lot of good that happens in Memphis, and it was a real honor, privilege, and blessing to be part of the community for the time that I was there.
Awesome. Best of luck this season, Coach. Thank you again.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.